Today I'm going to have a quick look at some simple mods I've made to this Vortex iKBC F-104 mechanical keyboard. So before I got to this stage, I disassembled it as I used it in my replacing mechanical key switches video, and I also primed the top shell as well, which is really important for the paint to stick on the ABS plastic. For this keyboard, I came up with a pretty simple idea that won't take up too much time and resources. Basically, I wanted to kind of break off a bit of the keyboard on the left to make it look completely different. First, I'll use some masking tape to make a line on where the break off will be to see what keycaps have to be taken off. For this, I'll be replacing the caps with blank white PBT keycaps for a nice contrasting look to the right side in terms of color and lettering. With the prime top shell on, it already looks pretty interesting, but I want to take it that touch further with some spray paint. For the left side, I'm going to use some gunmetal grey spray paint to contrast the white. Of course, the black would be the most contrasting colour, but the shell was already black in the first place. So now to tape the shell up and get a clean straight line, and to ensure that no paint gets on the other side and on the insides, as it can make putting it back together or taking it off again more difficult. After the first very light coat, you can see the metallic nature of the paint. The good thing about metallic paint is that it sticks very easily and covers the area really quickly, so you don't have to use as much paint to get the finish that you want. After a few coats and light sanding in between with the masking tape off, the line looks clean and the metallic paint will contrast nicely to the bland keycaps. Now for painting the other side, I'll use matte white just like how the keycaps are. I'll leave a tiny bit of gunmetal paint exposed so that the white paint can go over it to maintain a clean line. This time it is much more important to cover the other painted area as we're not going to be going over it in gunmetal, so I used a good amount of tape and ensure the paper was enclosed well enough. And here it is all painted. It turned out really quite nice, although I did have a few spots of trouble with the white as I began to run out of paint, so it isn't 100% perfect. I also did have an issue with where the F5 key is, as it was really hard to mask off, but I don't think it's much of an issue as when I put the shell back on, it'll be covered with the keycap anyway. I also put a few coats of satin clear top coat to protect the finish and make it more durable. And I also let this sit overnight to let it cure for longer. Now to put it back together, which is the simple process of putting in a few Phillips head screws and pushing down the top shell back onto the bottom shell. And it's all done. I'm quite pleased with how it turned out, so now for some reasoning behind some of the choices I made. As for the location of the cut, it wasn't too difficult to decide. For many, myself included, blank keycaps can sometimes be a challenge to use, so I decided to put them on the left side, as in my opinion these keys are the easiest to use. When I've used blank keycaps in the past, I have found that sometimes it was hard to locate some of the keys on the bottom right correctly. Also, I didn't want to go past the spacebar as it would require more keycaps and would take up more space, which wasn't what I was going for. Additionally, the lettering on the keycaps are on the same approximate angle as the break-off that I created, although I did have some issues with whether to include the F5 key or not. It doesn't line up perfectly, but I decided to keep the F5 keycap in its stock form, but I can easily change this if I wanted to. As for the colors and finishes I went for, I wanted to go with contrasting aspects, so I went with black and white, lettering and no lettering, and metallic and matte. It's not the typical monochrome theme and is a bit more complex, but I think it still works quite fine. A completely clean black and white theme in this manner would probably look really amazing. Overall, I'm quite happy with the results, but it is again something different and something I was willing to experiment with.